Yeah, also you probably notice when I start moving my animation for the object, they also change my animation timeline. And the reason because I don't have any second animation or other object that is extend above this time. So if I take my sphere, okay, second, and I'm going to preset maybe keyframe to this point. Okay, we'll go to the end. Let's go right here. We do 3 seconds, and I'll apply animation to this point. So now, if I have it my first sphere and change animation, you'll notice my timeline still standing. Even I modify start and end animation points for this. It's because our second sphere animation is locked here. So something to kind of know, it's if you have it only one object and you change end animation point, it may adjust also your starting your end point, but it does not apply to your start. Okay, then next we have start end. We will scroll to the timeline. We'll preview before. We also look on some curve options. We look on them from our curve menu, but you can also access directly on those options from top navigation or top timeline. Animated render options. Okay, I opened some of them and let's look on them a little bit closer. So if you notice, we have several render options. So we have render options, right click on the still images, which is also can apply some of the properties on our animations. So they kind of link, but animations will provide a bit more information. So example, if I switch right here on a broadcast, okay, and we'll go into animation render options, you notice right here preset render quality switch to the broadcast as well. Same if you set to user settings, so they will pass through. Next, okay, let's go look on animation render. We have it render different preset quality. We can also set as a user and default. As I said before, if you do animation, be sure using at least broadcast quality. We can have it render entire animation, or we can render sequence. It's meaning we can set, okay, what start frame and end you want it, or you can monitor by time. Next, we have it also, let's go click on the render entire animation. We have different channels we can render. Color, alpha, depth, that does not apply to G buffer or multipass. You can additional render and save all this information. When you save different type of the files, you have an option for the different format, full uncompressed, MP4, MIDI, and some of those formats, it depends what they install on your machine, on your computer. As well, in some you can modify quality. By default, it's MP4 and quality 100%. Many times when I render just uncompressed, so highest quality, and process in other applications. But again, it's up to your workflow, how you prefer to do this. So we have the frame padding. Frame padding, it's nice if you have pre-animation, need to be start on some models. Because I found this, you need sometimes for some poser animated items or models. If you're pre-animated in poser, you want some padding applied to these. You also have options for the G buffer and multipass, and this is more advanced options. We look in the advanced tutorial series on some of them, but overall right here you can access from your animations render options. You can access your G buffer set and also multipass buffer. Okay, we also have a frame rate. We kind of touched a little bit before. You have the 5 frames, mostly previews type, and you have it a standard film 24 or a TV PAL 25 or 30, or you can even specify your own included, maybe new one, 60 frame or other frames. So this is up to requirement for your project. You have the frame resolution pre-render and is as default. However, you'll notice right here we can click other and we can specify different frame range. So if you want to go with 1920 with a full HD, so you can type in and you can say right here we have it, our resolution automatically updated. So it's set your frame rate. Time code, if you want to show time code on your timeline. Currently we don't select a time code, we select in seconds, so time code won't display it. And we have it also render options, internal, external, or a network. By default, how I said before, it's just render internal, and it's render each frame on a screen so I can preview. The options allow you after play when it's done. Okay, let's look also on advanced options. You can access these advanced options. Okay, let me go click OK. From the right click with your mouse on the camera icon. So we'll have it left click, will open for us animation render option, and a right click or go click inside where advanced animation, it's open advanced animation properties. So right here we have a couple fields that I need point. Flicker reduction, mostly this will apply to your ecosystem or plant population, and it does work very well to remove it. Some of them, like distance blur, for example, if you have plants on a back, it's work with anti-aliasing and just blurring some of those pixels so you don't see flickering. You can enable field interlacing. This is mostly for all TV standards interlaced. Aspect ratio, square pixels, currently selected one by one, its computer type, or we can go with NTSC or PAL or other rates if you need it. And automated illumination baking, this is safe sometime when you do so it does not need to make pre-pass on a lighting every time when it's render frame, so you can kind of automate it in its pre-render some illumination. Be careful when you use it some of the automated illumination baking, or if you go inside and reuse some kind of indirect lighting or some properties, what's happening, it is make one pre-pass on the lighting, and if you have some lights change conditions, those lights not necessarily will render properly. So sometimes you need to, if you work with lighting or some other things, you want those options do not automate or do not reuse them. Okay, so next we also have it preview. It's a similar, we have it on the bottom, so we can create a new preview or generate it. And additional options, we have it for our object. So you notice right here, sphere 2 and sphere 1, we have it all these additional icons. Those icons allowed us to add additional manipulations on each object. The more advanced options, but overall you can select the curves display, ribbon way. We can adjust a path. And the most interesting one, it's probably filters, because with these curves filters, we can apply different type of animations. And when I need to create, for example, a flickering on some illuminations on an object, I can use it, the filter. So let's go preload that filter. We'll just double time click on this. And you can customize creating, or you can select one filter, and you notice that this filter will apply now to our animations. So our animations, you can see now it's have a jogging kind of move, so it won't move as smooth because the filter will apply acceleration, stop, acceleration down. Okay, as a preview, you can see right here it's kind of acting this way. So overall, this is very interesting properties you can apply to them play, but again, this is a little bit more advanced options, and we'll look for them in our advanced series of tutorials. Overall, here's your animations that allow you to kind of perform, work a little bit more with your object. Next things what I want to do as we're speaking about animations, let's look a little bit closer on some object properties and animations. So let's say right here we'll go on a beginning, and I want to select my objects, and we'll go and destroy animations for all of those objects. So now we have no animations set. We'll select first sphere. We'll go to add keyframe to our sphere. We'll move again to 3 seconds, and I'll move my object. So right here I have it animations done for my first sphere. So I have a second sphere. And let's go look in our properties for this object. You'll notice right here we have it no motion applied, we have it no track or link to. So what's happening if I set link to the sphere? So now if we select our first sphere and go with animations, you'll notice our second sphere is a link to animations of first string. That is great, so you can almost animate it together. But beside that, if we have a first string, on the bottom you notice right here, respond is actually linked together now. We enable. So if I set very loose, and you notice now I start moving, my object have this little bit rubbery effect, so it does not start instantly, it's kind of start after already going. In some cases, imagine you have a flock of the birds, and one bird is start flying, and rest birds after little time start flying after the main bird. So this is what will help us also with this response. So you can animate just one bird and select many other ones and link them to the first bird and set respond to the loose or random. So in this case, they all start jumping at random time and kind of follow the first bird. So you can create this way. Or you can also set loose tracking on a camera. So now what's happening if we set our first, let's set camera, and a camera, I set now I want track sphere 1. So look right here in this screen. Now when I start animating, my camera is always point or tracking my first sphere. So you can apply this not just to the camera, you can apply to different objects so they can track or take the headings and follow the object as it's moving. Same things with the camera. You notice when I enable, we have a loose respond or perfect. So if I give it a little bit more to the loose type, and when I start moving, now my camera kind of following. And this will represent very well our natural response. So if I have a camera holding in my hand and I see the flying object, I'm not necessarily tracking precisely, I'm a little bit delay or overshooting afterwards, so kind of responding. And this is what's happening. You can see it's got a very natural now camera following result with this object. Also, you notice we before look on two spheres, but now we also look on some camera animations, and you can actually animate camera similar ways like we animated spheres. So for example, I can take camera and I can say beside track link to sphere 2. So now my camera will have the same motion as my second sphere. So let's look right here. We'll zoom out. Okay. And you can see my camera start moving. Same little bit loose, but it's moving with my second sphere as well. Okay, let's go to track sphere 1, reset. So in this case, we have our motion and we start moving kind of with the sphere. So right here, you can see we kind of start animating. Be careful when you animated some properties, because right now camera have animated properties assigned. If I go inside the camera and change, for example, my focal link to this, so at this point you can see it's also created additional points. So now I go back and say, hey, my focal link is different. It's because I changed with keyframe. And one thing also notice, even I change on this point, my focal link is changed as well. So it's a smooth increasing, same like a movement or velocity. So if you needed some property change fast and instant, you can go inside the curvature for this. So for example, right here, focal, you can set curvature, you can change or add additional keyframe, or you can go inside and change right here by creating linear point. Okay, so we can go and change directly inside our curve. So let me go ahead, create add control point. Okay, can readjust. Let's set 2 linear here, linear on both of them. Bring this back and set maybe about right around this area. So you can see you can modify with the curves. On this case, if I go and adjust, now I have a constant focal length till I hit here and I zoom in. Many of animations or properties, it will require a little bit more advanced to look in, and we'll do this with animations. We will start working in our other tutorials. Just overall, right here is our animation timeline, and even when you start originally, it's maybe look simple, just one small line. It still have a lot of options inside to work with animations and render animations inside the view.